Picture this. You pour your entire soul into your home. Every wall, every corner tells your story. Murals of fairy tales, Disney castles, forests that feel alive. And then, one day, greedy landlords kick you out so their daughter can have it all. Only when she finally walks in, the magic she fought so hard to steal is gone. What she finds instead? A lifeless, soulless box. And that's the revenge you didn't see coming. If you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside by people with power, this story will hit home. Smash that like button, subscribe, and let me take you through one of the most unexpectedly satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. Setup: the artist and her dream house. There's a woman in my neighborhood who's always been a little different in the best possible way. She's in her late 60s now, retired, but art is in her blood. She used to teach, then ran a little paint and wine studio, and now she spends her time creating murals, painting furniture, and basically turning ordinary spaces into storybooks. Her home was her masterpiece. From the outside, it looked like a simple little cottage. Nothing flashy, just charming. But once you stepped inside, it was like walking into a living fairy tale. Hand-painted murals everywhere. Disney castles. Snow White's forest. Alice in Wonderland doors. It was magical. Kids loved it. Neighbors adored it. Honestly, even I, someone who once thought she was too much for complaining about my loud truck, ended up in awe of her talent. She and I eventually became friends. She'd lived there since the 80s, under a handshake deal with her landlord that she'd basically be allowed to stay as long as she wanted. But that promise died when the landlord did. Conflict escalation, greed in action. The landlord's kids inherited everything. And like vultures circling, they swooped in to inspect the property. One of the sons brought his daughter with him, and the moment she laid eyes on the murals, she decided, this house is mine. And just like that, decades of tenancy meant nothing. They told my neighbor she had to leave. No lease, no signed agreement, nothing binding in writing. And their excuse? The murals themselves. The art that had made the house famous, suddenly labeled damage to the property. I'll never forget the look on her face. She wasn't angry. She was crushed. Imagine being told that the very thing that defines you, the thing that brings people joy, is now the reason you're being thrown out.
She cried.
I'll admit I almost did too. But here's where the story takes a turn. She managed to scrape together enough to buy a new place in another state, one with a real art studio, where she could keep creating without interference. It was a bittersweet escape, but at least she wouldn't be homeless. And that's when she decided something brilliant. She didn't want to leave her old house looking like her house anymore. If her art wasn't respected, then they didn't deserve it. A couple of us neighbors, myself included, volunteered to help. One friend of mine is a pro painter who had been wanting to test out his new power sprayer. He jumped at the chance. Another buddy did landscaping and was itching for a big project. Together, we made a plan. It was heartbreaking, honestly. For a week, we moved all her furniture into storage. She stayed at my friend's guest house for free. Her only payment was painting a mural on his living room wall, which she happily did. Then came demolition. Sanding machines buzzed through every wall. The painted forests?
Gone.
The princess castles? Wiped out. Room after room turned into nothing but blotchy shadows of color. Next, the sprayer came out. My friend masked everything, then unleashed gallons of primer. For passes per wall, spraying pure white over every last trace of magic. But we didn't stop there. No, we Rebecca'd the house. That's what we call flipper-style homes. White semi-gloss walls, depressing gray cabinets, lifeless trim. The kind of design that looks like it came straight out of a budget IKEA catalog. By the end, the house looked dead. Soulless. Sterile. A gray coffin. And then came the cherry on top, the landscaping. Her cottage-style facade was carefully stripped down and removed. The whimsical little touches she'd added over the years? Ripped out. My landscaper friend bulldozed the bushes and flowers, replacing them with gravel, a random boulder, and nothing else. The cozy fairy tale house had become generic suburb hell. Climactic revenge payoff. their dream arrives. A couple weeks later, I swung by the neighborhood to do some repairs at another friend's place. And, of course, I had to check in on that house. It was still empty. My neighbor across the street filled me in. A U-Haul had pulled up earlier in the week. They saw the landlord's daughter walk in, then leave. The U-Haul? Never even unloaded. I laughed. Out loud. Can you imagine? She thought she was inheriting a magical wonderland, a literal storybook home. Instead, she walked into a lifeless shell, stripped of everything unique, everything artistic. Her greed had cost a kind, talented woman her home. And in the end, she got nothing but white walls, gray cabinets, and a sad little boulder in the yard. Karma doesn't always show up like thunder. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a house that looks alive one week and dead the next. My neighbor may have lost her home, but she walked away with her dignity and a fresh start in a place that actually celebrates her art. The landlord's daughter? She got exactly what she deserved, a house with no soul. If this story made you smile, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in her shoes? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's poetic.